Okay, fine. Good day to one and all. This is Dr. Sivaraman of iknowindices.com. So the entire world is waiting for the US second quarter GDP data release by 12:30 GMT. We are now around 11:40 GMT. Sorry for the delayed start of the webinar, and I will catch up. So between 11:30 and 12 GMT, I'll be giving you the expected market moves before and after that of the US second quarter GDP data release. What exactly the players are expected to do with regard to Euro GBP and USD yen. So let us review it and also understand how the players make their moves in the market from time to time and how they use such data release as the trigger. Okay. So first of all, we need to understand that the GDP data is being released every quarter, and invariably it can give a insight for that of the traders and also the big institutions whether the US economy is in the right track or whether it is still having some or taking some gap in order to gain some acceleration. That means whether the growth is in the positive territory or whether still it is on the sideways. So basically you come across, based on the interpretations, there could be some volatility in the market. But ultimately as a trader, we can go into the in-depth study of the GDP and also find out how exactly it should be, what it reflects with regard to the economic index, etc. But ultimately what is important for a trader is whether Euro and GBP are going to rise or drop after that of the GDP data release. So based on my focused algorithm, I'll be in a position to give what could be the pre-GDP data release, that is prior to that of the GDP data release by 12:30 GMT, what the players could do in the market. So with the help of the algorithm, statistical algorithm, I developed the model which gives the expected market moves for the sessions. So today, during the Asian session, I gave the webinar that Euro and GBP are expected to gain the levels during that of the Japanese session and slowly swing and firm up during that of the European session. So if you notice carefully that Euro and GBP gained and also USD yen, they gained the level to about 103.75 and come down, and they are holding at a lower level. So we want to find out whether it's a buy opportunity or a sell opportunity so that we'll be able to really make some good profit during such quick spikes. So normally the tendency of the trader will be to wait for the data release and then try to enter into the market, because the outcome of the event could give a big move in the market, and they do not want to be set. They do not want to sit on the wrong side so that the equity will suffer heavily. So instead, once they know that, okay, the GDP is positive for US dollar or negative for US dollar, and later on they wanted to commit the positions. And it is something like you try to take birth in sea once the waves recede. And that is a never-ending problem. So obviously we know that the market is known to make some whipsaw moves during that of the data release. And subsequently, what you fundamentally derive, they may pretend that they could make such moves, but later on they can just reverse the market. A similar situation we have noticed during that of the FOMC release on Wednesday. At that time, when there was unchanged condition, they quickly made the spike in the case of Euro and GBP, and immediately which gave the bullish feel for that of the traders. But subsequently, they started making the slide in the case of GBP. In order to handle Euro GBP cross, yesterday they had done the drop, and which gave that impression to that of the traders GBP could be weaker in the rest of the days of the week, but they started gaining the levels today. So this is how they make the swings in the market. We need to understand, and each time you come across that there could be an event which could act as a trigger for the market to make upward or the downward move. And today, for that of the BOJ reference, there was a big drop in the case of USD yen. At the time, they have been holding low Euro and GBP in order to just make phenomenal drop in the case of the yen crosses. And then subsequently, they started gaining the levels from that of the low. So how we refer all those things in order to have an understanding what could be the possible move. For that, we note down the initial lows and the highs, what they set around 3:30 GMT in the market with the help of the live market code page. This is the page. And then you come across that where exactly they are holding the currencies. Now you see that initial high in the case of Euro is 1.1088 and they are holding above that. And in the case of GBP, the initial high is 1.3214, but they are holding it in between the low and the high, in the middle level. And in the case of yen, 103.47 is the initial low, and currently they are holding below that, 103.33. And in the case of CHF, they are holding the market below that of the initial low. 0.9746 is the current level, 9789 is the low. And Canadian dollar, they are holding in between the low and the high. So currently 1.3163, holding closer to that of the low. And in the case of Australian dollar, they are holding it slightly above that of the initial low. So in all, you come across that they are showing mixed moves. That is, in the case of Euro, they are holding above that of the initial high. In the case of GBP, they are holding in between the low and the high. And in the case of yen, they are holding below that of the initial low. So Euro and USD yen are showing the USD weakening move possibility, whereas GBP is showing it could be a sideways move. And similarly, in the case of CHF, it is the USD weakening possibility because they are holding at a lower level. And in the case of Canadian dollar, they are holding it above the in the range again between the initial low and the high. So invariably, we expect the market to make some contrarian move, and that is also indicated here. We look into that of the net change, that Euro, GBP and Australian dollar are showing positive net change, whereas USDN and USD CHF are showing negative net change, as the USD weakening move could happen after that of the GDP data release, but Canadian dollar is showing USD gaining move, so which indicates that there could be some mixed moves happening in the market. So what sort of trades we could envisage during this time? So I just proposed here the trade which could be tried in a demo trading platform, and again I'll come back by 13 GMT and review what happened to those calls, what I have given it now before that of the GDP data release, and also I'll explain to you what has happened to that of the market after that of the GDP data release, how exactly they made the moves in the market, so which we'll be able to understand. Now in the case of Euro, you can keep a buy limit order 1.1074 with a hedge order at 1.1030, and there could be a quick gain about that, about 75 pips. So 1.1156 could be the exit level. And in the case of GBP, 1.3155, sorry, 1.3155 could be the, sorry, there was a typo, you can keep a buy limit order closer to the low. They could just make some false move before the data release as a downward push, and later on they could make an upward spike after the GDP data release. So you may not come across much of a significant or USD gaining moves in all. They are expected to make the USD weakening more suddenly after that of the GDP data release. And then subsequently, people might think that they are going to continue that GDP USD weakening move during the rest of the days. But suddenly, during the US session, they could go in for a profit booking. After gaining all the levels, they could simply book profit with regard to their buy positions for the weekend. And that is what we could see. So be careful while trading during the month end time. Invariably, they are expected to make some quick upward and the downward move. That is why I always recommend during the month end, when the going is good, try to grab the profit and don't try to go in for a position trade of holding the position for more than a day. Now, Australian dollar 74.85, you can keep the buy limit order, and if it is filled, then there could be an upward spike in the case of Australian dollar. And similarly, in the case of yen, 103.26, we can keep a buy limit order if they are closer to that, and keep the hedge order at 102.70, closer to the low. And they came down to 103.25 twice and came up, and they are trying to buy here, making a small dip below the initial low, and then induce the traders to take short sell. But actually the players are making the buys in order to gain levels. So watch carefully and try to trade during the US GDP data release time. If you got any question pertaining to this, I can answer to those questions. You can ask in the window which is provided for you to ask the questions. I'll be able to see that, this window. So that I'll answer to the questions if there are placed here. So they are expected to make a small dip before that of the GDP data release. In the case of Euro GBP, already they have made the dip in the case of USDN, and slowly by 12:30 GMT they will spike up. Watch carefully, you will be able to understand how they are making the moves in the market. So if there are questions, please ask me. I'll be willing to answer to those questions. Now, these are all the expected market moves. They're expected to swing and firm up during the European session. And during the US session, they are expected to make a swing to start with. That will be a holding high and then suddenly make a drop from there as a profit booking move. And towards close of the US session, they are expected to gain back again the levels. That is how the volatile move will be for the month end and also the weekend time frame. This they make such volatile moves mainly to handle the derivative market during the month end time. If there are questions, I'll be willing to answer to those questions. Okay, no questions. Then I'll come back by 13 GMT by the close of the European session. And for 15 minutes, I'll just review the call, what I have given, and also review the market, how exactly, what levels we have seen now, and also during the GDP data release, what happened after that. I'll give an interpretation, live market commentary, and also the forecast for the rest of the day at that time. Since there are no questions, so I just revised the expected market moves call and also I explained with the help of the initial lows and the highs how they are holding euro above that of the initial high, and GBP holding in between the low and the high. In the case of USDN, they are holding below that of the initial low, and Swiss franc also they are holding it below that of the initial low. So in all, they are making the USD weakening more, excepting GBP. And in the case of Canadian dollar, also they are holding it within the range, and Australian dollar also they are holding it in the same range. So ultimately, we are in a position to read that the players intend to make some volatile moves during that of the GDP data release time, and then subsequently they are expected to gain the levels in the case of Euro, GBP as well as USD. Pertaining to this, I have also given an article in FX rate analysis page. You can go through that, and then if you've got any questions, you can always send me the questions to doctor@i-noindices.com, and I am willing to answer to your questions. So I take this opportunity to thank FX Street for the facilities provided to present the webinar, and I'll come back by 13 GMT and review the market and explain to you how exactly the players are making the whips or moves in the market in order to earn money. They focus on money, we focus on the levels. So we have to change our mindset and see that we should also focus how exactly we can capture money during such volatile moves in the market. Thank you one and all. See you by 14 GMT.